Hey everyone, how's it going? How's everyone feeling? It's been a great day. Um, I'm gonna start off by asking you guys a question. A lot of people do this probably, but raise your hands. Raise your hands if you want to see your message up here on this billboard on lights over Broadway. How many of you guys? Raise your hand. Show of hands. Come on, raise them up. You want to see your message up there. You guys have online businesses, maybe a name of your blog or something that you own up here, right? Everybody walks by, everybody takes a look, right? Might get visibility for your brand, right? How those show of hands. What about your brand, your product? Do you want to see that in New York Times or Forbes, perhaps, or Wall Street Journal, kind of the equivalent of being on the billboard, right? Not having your message on the billboard, but having your product on NewYorkTimes.com on the homepage. Show of hands. All right, and show of hands if you just don't like to raise your hand when you're asked a question. You just there's still has show of hands. Whose hands are heavy? Who's got heavy hands? All right. Well, I got news for you guys. All of you guys are said, yes, I want to get my name in Lights Over Bright. I want my name on the billboard. I want my name in New York Times. Your customers are at home. They're actually watching Netflix, a very specific show on Netflix, right? So targeting wise, you might be falling down a bit. If you're a bootstrap entrepreneur, if you're trying to grow and do this efficiently, right? And the same analogy translates to PR. When you're going after your customers, it's very tempting to go after the New York Times, the TechCrunch, the Forbes, and get your name out there. Get your name in lights over Broadway, I call it, right? I was guilty of that. I was just like you. I wanted my company just reach out to be on TechCrunch, and here I am on TechCrunch. And when I say Netflix is a very specific blog, right? Think of it as like where my customers hang out, and only my customers. But TechCrunch, everybody hangs out on TechCrunch. My mom was checking out TechCrunch the other day, my accountant, and those people are not my customers. They're just not the people I want to actually visit my site. They actually do me a disservice. So when I look at this number of 748 people on my site from TechCrunch, I was getting excited back then. But now looking back on it, not very exciting. Because I know it's such a mixed bag of people that maybe a tiny percentage of them actually converts. And that's what happened. Who converted to book them? Well, 6 people. Just horrible. Like 0 point something percent of people actually register. And while the traffic is high, the conversion really sucks. And should I be doing that, right? Should I be stuck doing that kind of work? Now back then I this type of PR was the only thing that I knew. And that's what most of us sort of want. We want to get exposure. We don't really care about conversion. Most of us in this room, when we're thinking about it, we want to get just lights over, but just get me in there. And if they see what I got, they're going to cover me, and that's it. I'm going to get into TechCrunch. That's the holy grail. I'm done, right? The truth of the matter is really, the reality is you need to find the most relevant publication, right? Where your customers hang out. So, do we want to keep doing this? In my world, I say no, right? We don't want to be going after BuzzFeeds, right? The Forbes of the world. We want to be going after Neil Patel's, and I call it the Netflix targeted approach. Why is it Netflix targeted? Think of it. You can have 150,000 people walk by Times Square and look at your billboard, and maybe one of them might be sort of kind of a good customer. And then the rest who contact you will be just crap. And you'd waste tons of time and effort trying to figure out if they're the right ones, qualifying them. Or you might go after, a very specific marketing conference where you'll get 50 people to contact you versus thousands. But it'll be, for me, it was Neil Patel's blog, right? There was the Netflix approach, a very specific show in Netflix. And so that's, when I think of PR, I think of this analogy. Lights over Broadway, hundreds of thousands of people come to your site, and you're stuck trying to figure out, like, all these people come to the site. You're like most of them suck, right? Versus custom target. Go after a very specific publication that has your customers there. Hope this is making sense. So with this approach, right, it's not just going after those publications to get a little bit of traffic, to convert to customers or potential leads. It's helping yourself rank for specific keywords and using PR to that extent. And today, that's what we're going to jump into is, how do you use PR to create content to rank really high on Google to do well, right? And so just to reiterate, traditional Broadway PR, that lights over Broadway, you guys are raising your hands for, really sucks at targeting your customers. It actually doesn't do usually it doesn't target customers at all. And if you don't think about targeting, you don't think about the Netflix approach, you are missing out. You're becoming very inefficient at doing PR, and you're just throwing money out, and you're spending a lot of time trying to qualify people that are not your ideal customers, right? And having sales calls or getting people to convert is a nightmare usually. So the sneaky Netflix PR approach that we'll jump into really starts from where do your customers hang out. And in this diagram, you can see it might be a YouTube channel, might be a book, might be a podcast. This is different types of places. So you need to identify that. You need to start thinking about that long and hard. If it's not Neil Patel for me, who's the smaller guy under Neil Patel? Is it marketingprofs.com? Who has just my audience? I just want maybe like 90% of people who read this publication, consume it, are like my ideal customers. For me, it's content marketers, right? So 50 signups on TechCrunch, meh. Versus 10 signups monthly if I implement the right strategy content-wise and help myself rank for these specific keywords on Google, right? For me, and this is one of our customers, Brian Dean, he's written an article called SEO Tools. Now, he ranks number 3 for this term. This term gets hundreds of thousands of searches a month. He's number 3 for this thing, and I mentioned like number 10 in there. Now, this article alone brings me 20 signups monthly. You can see these signups right here. That's the power of using this approach that we'll be talking about today and targeting your customers and ranking on Google with the help of PR. So hopefully this is starting to make sense, that combining SEO and targeting your right kind of publications with your PR efforts give you consistent traffic, just like in this example, right? Consistent, 20 signups monthly. Not 50 signups one time only, but 20 signups monthly from one article to consistently get that traffic that's very targeted. SEO traffic, SEO tools, very targeted to my customers. Okay, so with that, I want to jump into this is some of the other examples of, Google PR outreach. My blog stands out. I want to jump into a specific case study here, and this case study is going to be for Pipedrive. And this is how we got Pipedrive to rank number 1 for the term sales management, and we're going to jump into how to do this from 0 to ranking number 1 for sales management. Again, why do we want to do this? Because we get consistent traffic every day. We don't have to spend any ad dollars on it. It's targeted, very targeted. People Googling sales management, 60,000 people a month hit our site. This is what Pipedrive does, sales management tool. So it's very targeted. and there's no need to do more press. You do one PR campaign with SEO in mind, and you get that link and you get that spot. Okay, so I hope that's clear in your minds. If you want to read the whole case study, go justreachout.link/Moz. It's a whole case study on Moz. Justreachout.link/Moz. Let's jump through this process very quickly as an overview. We first figure out the topic we want to write about on our site, on our own blog. Then we write the article and we publish it on our own blog. And then we're going to do PR outreach to get links to that main piece of content on our blog. Just so it's super clear, I want to double check and reiterate. There's a Google Doc. We write the article. We publish it on Pipedrive's blog. There's the article on Pipedrive's blog. That article on Pipedrive's blog gets links from other sites. Top MBA, LinkedIn blog, Inc. magazine, and so forth. Podcasts, whatever. This main piece of content in the middle is sitting on Pipedrive's blog. And this is the piece of content that's going to rank number 1 for the term sales management. This is that article. So here it is. We published it. We got links to it. We linked to it internally from many different places within the Pipedrive site. We got links externally from LinkedIn blog and Inc. and all this stuff. And then, boom, we're ranking number 1 for the term sales management, okay? So just so you have that map in mind, okay? We're publishing an article on our own site, and we're ranking with it with the help of PR by getting those links. And that's the secret sauce here. So the first thing, I'm not going to spend too much time into the keyword research topic. This is a whole thing in itself. I do this for a living. I consult and help people figure out which keywords they should be writing about. But I'll give you a quick little hack on how to do this virtually for free. In Ahrefs, there's a little thing called, you can go and type in Quora.com. In Ahrefs, you can take a look at what are the top positions, top 10 positions Quora.com is ranking for, and you can filter that for your topic. Now, why do we care where Quora.com is ranking for? Why do we care? Well, because if Quora.com is ranking for your term, that's a huge indicator that Google does not want that to be there. Because Quora.com is really crappy in terms of content. Google likes to rank original content. The original content that is created by writers, like people like you, experts, right? So if Quora.com is ranking, that's a huge indicator that, hey, you can probably rank for that rather easily by writing an article about it. So we filter we'll take a look at what Quora is ranking for in your topic, and then we use those opportunities to pick the best fit. As an example, an espresso, a travel camping gear type of an espresso machine here, right? We go on Ahrefs, we type in Quora.com, and then you see that filter up there. You can, up there, see it says camping here, right over here. So I filtered it by camping, and I filtered it by position 1 on Google. And here are all the choices. So very quickly, you can start to figure out, oh, maybe California camping laws is something I'm an expert in. I'll write about it. I can see the volume, how many times this term is being searched, and I can start writing about it. Remember, I'm writing for my own blog to try and rank for this keyword, right? There's a whole tutorial about it. Just reach out that link/rank. You can check it out, how this works. But essentially, you are looking at Google search results. You're seeing Quora.com ranking top number 1, and what your goal is to write something better, right? And we'll jump into all that. Again, just reach out that link/rank. You can check out the whole kind of all the information about it, the whole process. I wrote also an article about it. Just reach out that link/Ahrefs. Just reach out that link/Ahrefs. I'll make these slides available so you can check out the case study and the tutorial as well. Not going to spend too much time on keyword research, but that was a quick little hack that you guys have. I'm going to spend the bulk of the presentation on writing the article with PR outreach in mind. I'll even show you how PR outreach works in this section. And then we'll show you how to do the PR outreach to get press and backlinks. So let's jump in, writing the article with PR outreach in mind. So let's take a look here. So the first thing, when you start writing your article, in our term, remember, it's sales management. What we did is we Googled the term sales management, we looked at these results, and we started figuring out what are the weaknesses of that content. What do I mean by weaknesses? The content is either outdated, it's less than 2,000 words, it's got no examples, it's got poor user experience, or it's got poor load/performance. One of those things, or all of them. We listed what those problems were, and then in our article, we wanted to attack them and make them better. That's the first thing that I start thinking about in terms of PR outreach, right? And writing my article. Now let's think about links. Remember, that main piece of content, and it gets links from all these other sources, right? That main piece of content is going to sit on our site. We're still writing this article. We haven't published it. There it is in Google Doc. The first thing I start thinking about is I want to guest post on other publications to link back to my own piece of content. And so I want to add resources and examples that I'll be linking back to. Here's the resources section that I'm adding right now in Google Docs, how to start managing your sales team. There's a resource on how to do this. Why am I doing this? Well, because later on, when I submit articles to be published on other sites, as a guest contributor on those sites, I'm going to get a link back to my main piece of content on pipedrive.com blog. It's going to look just like this. Tap Action Resources. It may be helpful to research some of the most successful sales management techniques. Now, if I had tried to list all of sales management techniques in my article on another website, it doesn't make any sense because it's a short article. It doesn't make sense to list all the sales management techniques on my own piece on Pipedrive. Of course it does, because this is how I'll be able to reference it later down the line. So I'm thinking that way already. And I'm already thinking, as I'm writing my article on Pipedrive's blog that's going to get links, I'm already thinking, how am I going to find those blogs, right? So I go on Google and I type in best sales blogs. HubSpot shows up with a great list. I go through this list and I find blogs. And now the first thing that I take a look at is Startup Nation, for example. That was one of the blogs there. I click on their editorial calendar that's on their, listed on their site, and I take a look, what are the topics that they're requesting from me right now? It looks like, there's something about e-commerce, there's something about startups, bootstrapping, and so I take that into the account. I click over to the contact form, and the contributor section tells me how to contact them. I might click over and take a look at, this is a nice little plugin. This is one of the easiest ways. I use this hunter.com, hunter.io is the URL. It's a little plugin. I just click at the top of the right-hand corner, and I find all the contact information and sort of who are the people that are publicly listed for this site. It gives me the setup of what the email should be for each person. So, if I can't find a contributing contact us link, I can easily sort of pull up email addresses of everybody on the site and find the right contact information to contact an editor to submit my potential guest post. Now, remember, I'm still writing my main piece of content, but I'm already adding information into my piece of content on Pipedrive's blog, the main piece of content on my Pipedrive that's going to get links from other sites. And I'm already thinking, who should I contact as a potential guest poster, right? Guest contributor. And so in this case, we found Startup Nation, we found the email address and we found the editorial calendar. And so we might even start sending out emails like this as we're writing our own piece of content on our own blog, right? Hi, Kara, I reviewed your editorial calendar for contributions. I have a topic for you, right? I found Kara's email by using hunter.io, or I found it on their site here, right? Now, this is useful because guess what? When you publish that main piece of content, Kara would have gotten back to you already, and you would have had lined this up already. So now you can just turn around, write a small article for Kara on Startup Nation, get that link to point back to your main piece of content on Pipedrive blog, and voila, you already had that set up. Because this takes time, right? Finding Kara's information and doing all that. Remember, our main strategy is to write that main piece of content on Pipedrive and get those links. How do we get those links? In this particular tactic that we're talking about now, using guest posting, there I am on Top MBA, writing an article for 7 tips for MBAs entering sales management careers. Guess what? I'm linking back to the Pipedrive, right? How did I do that? I went through this process. I found best sales blogs. I found Startup Nation. I went on there. I found their email address and I sent this email. I submitted my guest post and it got published, after I published my main piece of content. So that's guest posting. Writing your article with your guest posting in mind, right? Now let's think about writing your article with broken link replacement in mind. Now, same idea. I'm writing my article on sales management on Pipedrive. I go and I find best sales blogs. Then first one on here, I see Sales Hacker. I type in Sales Hacker into Ahrefs and I go to my broken links explorer in Ahrefs. And here they are. There are all these broken links on saleshacker.com. I can type in any site, right? So I can type tons of these sites out there, and Accent Technologies is another one. So I keep looking for more and more of these sites as a good example in here. I want to find a real broken link. Sometimes Ahrefs lists broken links and they're not really broken, right? They're just redirects or something like that. Once I find the broken link, here's Accent Technologies, I see what's broken about it. Well, I can take a look. CSO Insights recently ranked top businesses for improving sales manager effectiveness. Okay, so there's something about sales manager effectiveness and that CSO Insights is broken. That link is broken. Okay, great. So I go to Accent Technologies, the site that published this, and I fire up Hunter real quick. I see all the public emails, and I know who to email. Now I go back to my main piece of content. I'm being sneaky. I'm adding that sales manager effectiveness piece in there because I just found that they have something broken about it, and I'm going to be using that in my outreach. Remember, sales manager effectiveness is in here. I'm adding it into my own post. After I do that, I go ahead and outreach, right? I got my email address from Hunter. I know who to ping because I found it on the Ahrefs. I added that piece of content in my own piece, right? I published it. I would need to have published that piece on Pipedrive to do this outreach. And here I am, found a broken link on your site. I came across your article below while doing research. I'd like to promote it to my own customers. Now this is a pivotal moment here. I want to promote your article, but it's got a broken link in it. It just so happens I published a blog post with something that is in the same topic, and you don't even have to ask to replace a broken link. You can, in this example I do, but you don't have to. And you wait for them to get back to you, right? Again, our main goal here is to get links pointing back to the main piece of content. In the previous section, we talked about guest posting in other publications and the process we went through that. In this section, we're talking about finding broken links, right? And asking them to replace them on your topic. In this topic, it was sales manager effectiveness, something that we cover in our main piece of content, sales manager definition and process strategies on Pipedrive blog. Next thing is podcast interviews. So I want to kind of jump into that. So again, I'm writing my piece of content and I find that podcasts is usually a very good way to get a little bit of link love, right? Especially if you're referencing specifics in the podcast episode from your article, from your main piece of content. So here it is. We got, so what you do is you subscribe to a newsletter. You subscribe to something like Spot a Guest. We'll jump into some more details about it a bit later on. But these newsletters are all free, right? Spotaguest.com, you put in your email, you get literally queries just like this. I'm looking for a CEO to interview. I'm looking for somebody, Sales Excellence Podcast is looking for someone to interview on their show who published a book on selling. So you go into your own piece of content, that main piece of content that's published, and you add a little. We added an 18-page ebook PDF. We literally took a few blog posts, literally created a PDF out of them and put in a little call to action here. And we did an outreach. We quickly pinged colleagues and other folks in a similar fashion. We used me and some other folks on the team, depending upon who the best guest would be for that show. A bit about who I am. Again, you're responding to an already, the emails are in the email newsletter that you get, so you don't need to find contact information. You're literally responding, you're saying a bit about yourself, and you're saying, hey, wanted to ask point blank, we have a book on selling, would love to be on your show, been on the podcast, here are just some. And very quickly, right? Very short, to the point, and very directed to what they've submitted. Here's another one, saw you on a Spotted Guest. This is from my wife, actually sent this out. We were actually on CEO podcast not too long ago. Again, responding to a specific query, right, that they submitted. Again, our goal is to get links back to the sales management piece on Pipedrive blog by doing podcast interviews and having those podcast websites, third-party websites, reference the main piece of content by referencing that during the interview. Pitching journalist is usually also a very, very useful way to get those links pointing back to your site. So let's take a look. So I'm writing my article on sales management, right, on Pipedrive. And so I go on Google and I type in sales manager success. I find an article, how to become 5 habits of successful sales leaders. That looks interesting, right? I click it. I can see Kevin wrote it. I start reading it, right? I go and I type in Kevin Cruz Forbes to try and track this guy down, to figure out who he is, because he's written something on topic with what I've written. So I find his site, kevincruz.com. I can see his contact information right there, and I can quickly kind of figure out and size him up. What does he do? Where he's been, so forth. And so in the email, I go back to my main piece of content. Again, I'm writing with PR in mind. So I've published the article, but I'm also editing it all the time. And I'm saying, hey, I loved your article, but we just published an article, created a visual to illustrate what you've written about. And now I actually created this in PictoChart myself, but I took a visual of what he's done and I added another dimension to it. Here it is. This is how the visual kind of looked. I kind of wrote it in Google Docs and then I put it up on the actual article live. And so Kevin gets back and says, thank you so much. And this is how the conversation starts. This is how the pitching starts. So again, I'd say do this kind of outreach and thinking to get those links, right? This is the type of writing you need to be doing as you're thinking about PR, right? You're writing with PR in mind. So you're thinking about this type of outreach as you're writing your article. You might be actually doing this outreach as you're writing the article. The goal is always links to the main piece of content of Pipedrive, right? Pipedrive blog. We're going to be number 1 for the word sales management. To get there, we need a lot of different links from lots of different types of websites. Internal linking is the last piece of the whole puzzle. But as you're writing your article, you got to figure out where you're going to be linking from. It could be the footer. It could be the resources section. It could be a landing page. But it needs to be highly traffic section of your site to make sure that you're linking back to that main piece of content, to make sure to let Google know that you stand out here with this piece of content, right? So this is writing with PR in mind and writing with thinking about links in general, right? I want to make sure that this is very crystal clear in your mind. You're writing and you're trying to make sure that you get those links pointing to your site. The very last thing, we're going to jump into PR outreach here. This is a bit of a review of what we just talked about, but I want to jump into a few new things here. So PR outreach, the first thing to do when you do PR outreach for journalists is to produce newsworthy content. You want content that, and 39% of journalists actually want exclusive research, and studies, data, insights do insanely well. Why? Because it actually is actionable stuff that people love. Here's a great example from a customer of ours. 912 million blogs analyzed. Here's a little section within that study right here. 77% long form content gets an average of 77% more links than short form content. So he turned that into a sort of a press release, and he pitches that, and he gets press. Look at all those publications on the right that he gets press from. Now, America's Filthiest Cities revealed. Now, this is an independent company. They go out and they just kind of survey some cities. They send some people to these cities to figure out the filthiness. Now, look at, they have 25 different cities on this study. And what they do is they just start pitching local news publications, local TV stations that are just starving for content usually. Saying, hey, you made our filthiest list and you're number 7 or number 20, right? And you start getting press this way, right? Data like this, where you don't even have to run this data yet, you can just test it by sending emails like this, just kills. It's absolutely, you guys so well with PR. I've got, like a good one too. 87% of keto dieters report they cheat. And so it's easy for you to figure out, all right, what kind of data or insights should I add to my main piece of content? This is what we started doing for sales management article, as you can see here, to pitch to journalists, right? Going down the line. Automating pitching relevant journalists. So again, with this, go to helperreporter.com, sign up. You get these queries, these newsletters that we talked about earlier, every single day. Hundreds of thousands of these come out every day. So you might, per day, you might get 200 of these in the newsletter. You get 17 different times, I think they'll email you, up to 17 different times. It's insane. This is a typical query. You have the email address, you have the name, it's free, you subscribe to it, you answer these. That's all you do to get those links pointing back to your main piece of content. You subscribe to spotaguest.com. You go and answer queries like this that we talked about. And guess what? You use a template just like this, and you can go to justreachout.link/PO, justreachout.link/PO. Don't use the S after the HTTP, justreachout.link/PO. And you get those people to link to you. Why do they link to you? Because you're just answering their queries. They need an expert to talk to. You're just answering their queries. You're getting links back to your main piece of content. You're making sure that you're referencing that main piece of content. I've automated the whole thing myself. If you need more than this type of process, I like to, I built my own tool, and this is, advanced, basically. This is what the pros these days, that are just doing tons of this research. For me, I index all this stuff, and I use a little my own tool. But for you, it's free. It's helperreporter.com. You sign up, and Spot a Guest, you sign up, and there's 17 different ones out there that I know, 22 different newsletters that I know that do this. We index all those. This is how it kind of looks. But for you, you don't need to. For you, you go and sign up on helperreporter.com or spotaguest.com. All right? The next up is pitching journalists directly. So remember, we talked about it. We go on google.com, we type in sales management effectiveness, right? We find the first article, sales effectiveness. We take a look at Gretchen Gordon. We click that Twitter link next to her bio because we want to see who she is. We see her personal site on her Twitter profile. We go to her personal site, but we see just the contact us, lame contact us form. It might not go to her directly. So we hit up Hunter extension, right? We see her real email address. We use that email address, and we send an email to her. I just read your post on effectiveness. We published an article. We found something that is interesting. We have an intersection of sales operations analysis. Wanted to show that to you. Now, you're just starting a conversation. We'll see where it goes, but this is how you start that outreach, right? In my case, I've also automated the whole thing. Not really going to get into details of how all this stuff works, but if you're all interested, do ask me, and we have a whole engine on how to find the most relevant journalists and do all this outreach that is a little bit easier and less manual. But we'll jump through this because for you, that's the process that you want to go through, right? Automating guest posting outreach. Again, we talked about it. We went to best sales blogs. We found that editorial calendar. We found the contact form. And we even found the email addresses with the help of Hunter plugin. We composed an email just like this one and got a response from a contributor even when we were writing the main piece of content. Again, links to the main piece of content, not your homepage, your main piece of content that you want to rank. There's a whole process that I use to automate all this stuff, finding the most relevant guest posts based on a category and doing sort of more of an automated approach to submitting yourself to all these. Again, very advanced. For you guys, I'd say start out with very basic type of stuff, right? You don't need to automate and contact all these journalists at all these publications at once. All you got to do is you got to Google and find Gretchen from Business to Community and talk to her about, including you in the publication or figuring out if she knows someone who is an editor at that publication. That's why you essentially are pitching Gretchen, right? Saying, hey, you write for that publication. Would love you to introduce me to somebody. Broken link outreach, again, same thing. Remember, we found sales blogs. We found broken links in Ahrefs. We found where that broken link was. We added that section in our article, our main piece of content. We found the email address using Hunter. After adding that section in our site, we use this template to reach out to them and ask them to replace that link. Again, in an effort to get links to the main piece of content, that main piece of content on your site. I automate all this stuff with my own tool. There's many tools out there that allow you to make this a less manual process of going to Ahrefs and finding all these people and finding the contact info with Hunter. We essentially try to automate the whole process, and I find it much more effective for myself. Now, I do a lot of this stuff, and if you get into this stuff, you're pretty much going to need to find solutions out there to do this kind of stuff in an automated fashion. I'm not telling you to do that now. I'd say don't do that now. Don't find any tools, but go and do this manually through the process that I mentioned to you. But that's how I do it, through sort of automation and mail merge type of stuff. All right? And the last but not least, podcast outreach. We talked about it a bit earlier. I just want to remind you guys, we're subscribing to Spot a Guest. There's about tens of these different newsletters, but go to Spot a Guest, start there. Free newsletter, respond to these, and get featured in these shows. Use a template, something like this. Again, the slides will be available for you guys later on, right? Again, our goal is to get links back to our main piece of content, sales management. I can't stress that enough. Do not get links back to your main homepage, anywhere else. Link up this piece of content in all the PR outreach that you do. All right? I'm not going to bore you to death with how we automate podcast submissions with our tool, but essentially we do that as well. And that's pretty much the process. This is all the different types of ways you can get yourself featured in press, pitching relevant journalists, guest posting, broken links, podcast outreach. Our process, remember, we did our keyword research, we wrote the article with PR in mind, even started doing some PR outreach, and then we automated the PR outreach. We got that rocking and rolling with that process that for each one that I talked about. Main piece of content gets published on Pipedrive's blog. That gets links from press articles, podcasts, guest articles, broken links. And then we link it up internally. And voila, we're ranking #1 on Google. All right? Hopefully this is making sense. Hope you understand the value of this approach to doing PR. And I'd love to hear questions you guys have about this process.